Hey guys, Andrew Davidson here, and welcome back to another As Per My Ability video. It's great to see you guys all again. It's good to be with you. If you like what we do here at As Per My Ability, if you like our videos, if you like our content, if you like board games in general, please comment, like, and subscribe. Do all the fun YouTube stuff. We appreciate everything you guys do to help our channel grow. Also, while you're at it, hit the bell so you get notifications when we post new videos. I heard that if you hit the bell, you get 7 years good luck, and we could all use a little bit of good luck every once in a while. In today's video, we are going to be swimming in the deep, dark waters of this is me swimming. This is my swimming. The Prospero Hall. We're going to be swimming in the Prospero Hall pool again as we take a look at The Shining, the board game. So The Shining, the board game, is made by the Prospero Hall design team, which I've actually been trying to play and review and do a lot of videos on their games because I, for the most part, tend to really enjoy their games. So here's a new one, The Shining, the board game. It's based off the movie, which is based off the book. But first of all, before I show you the game and talk about the game itself, how about we get a little bit of a background and history lesson? We'll show the game off, do a bit of an overview, then we'll come back and I'll talk about how I feel this ranks as just not only a standalone board game, but as a game within the Prospero Hall universe. Welcome to The Shining, the board game. Before I get into talking about the game, I want to talk about kind of the history of The Shining and some of the background to it. So The Shining is a novel written by Stephen King in the late 70s. In the 80s, it was given a film adaptation treatment by Stanley Kubrick, who was a popular director at that time. The movie has gone on to be one of the great horror staples of horror movies. It's got cult classic, and this game is in fact based on the artwork, and all of that is based on the Kubrick version. But I want to tell you something that 99.9% of you don't know. There is another Shining movie. In the 90s, they made a Shining movie. Stephen King actually was so upset with the Stanley Kubrick treatment that he kind of funded and put together a 90s mini-series movie, made for TV movie of The Shining. Now, in my opinion, The Shining from the 90s is far superior to the Kubrick version, and I'll tell you why. One, I'm a Stephen King fan. Two, I've read The Shining, the novel. And three, because of the long-form nature that the made-for-TV movie series has, it's able to kind of slowly, follow the story of the novel. So it stays closer to the novel, whereas the Kubrick version is all over the place and it changes things, and there's a lot of character motivations that don't make sense. It's kind of like when you're watching a scene where someone is supposed to be drunk and they're acting all drunk, and then it cuts away and then cuts back to them a couple minutes later, and now they're like not slurring their speech or like acting drunk at all. They seem completely fine. That's kind of how The Shining, the Kubrick version, works, along with not being really faithful to the novel that much at all. Welcome to The Shining, the board game. Now, bear with me, as the board is elongated board, and I'm trying to get everything on camera in the frame as possible, so I'll do my best. Second thing is that I'm going to give you an overview of just some of the main concepts of how the game works. I'm not going to go into all the specifics, although I will caveat that by saying this is a pretty simplistic game. So I'll start with setup. When you set up the game, you're going to have your player count. You will be picking your players. I'm setting up a 2-player game with yellow and purple. So your players will pick your cards and you will place them in the office is where you start. And so yellow's been drinking, which actually is kind of thematic. But I have a 2-player game set up. The second thing that you're going to do is give 3 hit points. This represents your health to each player. So yellow, and this could be purple's health. The game is a cooperative game or semi-cooperative game. I highly recommend that you play it as fully cooperative, at least for your first couple of games, and then you can try the semi-cooperative version of the game, which is the way the game really should be played, but take it or leave it. I'm not a huge fan of semi-cooperative games. So the next thing that you'll do, we have our players. We have these secret tokens. There's a whole bag of them. The game comes with a whole bag of them, but you're only going to pull out 13 per player. So 13 and 13, you'll put them face down and kind of mix. This is me mixing them up, trying to keep everything in frame. Oops. Okay, then after that, you have your players, you have your tokens, you have your health. Now, if you are playing with the semi-cooperative Traitor, or what they call corrupted mode, you will be taking these roll cards and giving them out face down to all of the players. And they will either say caretaker or they will say corrupted. If you get the corrupted card, that's basically you're the spy, for lack of better terms. You're the one that wants to tank the game. You win the game by killing someone off, basically. Now, if you're not playing with the corrupted, then just take these cards and put them back in the box because it doesn't matter. Everyone is on the same team. So that's how I've really played this game. Truth be told, I have not played the game with the Traitor element yet, although maybe I'll give it a go someday. But if everyone is on the same team, you don't need those cards. After that, you're going to shuffle the event deck, which I've already done, and you're going to shuffle the shining cards, which I have already done. Then you are going to place these tokens out on the board based on player count, because you can see some of the spots are open because I'm only playing a 2-player game instead of a 3 or 4 or 5-player game. Now, the objective of the shining, if you're playing fully cooperative, and that's kind of how I'm going to explain this game, is basically everyone needs to survive for 4 months. If you've survived for 4 months, then you've survived the winter, nobody's died, nobody's hacked anyone else's head off, you win the game. If anybody dies, the game is over. If you are the traitor or corrupted, you win the game. To begin play, you are going to give out these shining cards. You're going to give 2 of them to each player. However, you're not going to draw from the top. You are going to draw from the bottom, and you will give out 2. So this will be like 2 to my purple player and 2 to my yellow player. And I will put them back. Now, you are not allowed to look at your shining cards. They just have to stay sitting in front of you. Now, this shining card represents somewhere between 2 and 4, a value on the backside of this card. This represents somewhere between 1 and 5. Now, I'm going to flip these over to kind of for edification purposes, but how the game works is you do not look at these until you reach a certain point in the game. So they look something like this. So I got a 1 and a 4. But as I'm playing, I will not know that because these cards will stay face down and nobody will look at them. The next thing that you're going to do is draw an event card. So let's take a look at those. At the start of each round, you will draw an event card and basically do what it says. And it's kind of hilarious because it repeats over and over and over and over and over. So you really only need to read the first sentence because it just repeats over and over. Now, the main thing that you want is to look at the color, because when the next card is drawn, the event card is drawn, if it is the same color as the previous, then you are going to basically go into what they call the shining mode when the round is over. So in other words, once yellow has taken their turn, once purple has taken their turn, you are going to go into the shining phase. But let's say you don't get that. If you get a purple, and then you get a green, and then you get a purple, you will not play any more than 3 events until the game basically just says, go ahead and move on to the next month. Or you move into the shining phase, then you'll move to the next month. So at most, you're gonna play 3 rounds, at most. At least, you're gonna play 2 rounds, at the least. And these event cards are basically just cards that you're just gonna read and follow. So you'll shuffle those and place those there. On your turn, you are required to move. You're required. And you get 1 movement point for free. So I'll be the yellow player. I can move here, and you're basically just following the lines. It's pretty self-explanatory. The stairs. There is an elevator which has to deal with a die roll, which I'm not going to get into, but there's stairs going upstairs and then down here. There's also the hedge maze, which I'll talk more in depth. In fact, it's the only room I'm really going to talk in depth about. The rest of it I'm just going to skip over. But yes, you get 1 movement for free. You have to move. You cannot end in the spot that you started. If you want to move extra, you have to discard the shared pool of tokens. So you'll discard 1 of these, throw it back in the box like that, and you'll get another movement point. I'm struggling with yellow. And so you can move again, or you could spend another 1 and you could move up the stairs again. Now, why would you want to do this? Now, the pool that you have in front of you is what's going to be replenished, because the goal of the game is to pick up these tokens. And after every new month, new tokens will come out. If you run out of tokens, then you don't have any new tokens to help stave off the madness of the Overlook Hotel, which is called the Shining phase. Also, if you run out of tokens, the game gets particularly nasty. So on your turn, you're going to move. You have to move at least 1 spot. Then you will follow the text on the room. Like I said, I'm not going to go into any of the rooms in depth except for the hedge maze. And then that's essentially your turn. You'll probably take 1 of these and place it in front of you. So let's say that yellow would take this, and he or she would put it in front of them like this, face up. And that is your turn. Then purple would go and say, like, well, purple's going to move this way and take their turn. And then we go back to the event phase. Since we only have a 2-player game, we flip a new event. Now, like I said, if the event cards match colors, or if you've played your 3rd event, the game basically says, we're going to just push you along into the next month. But first, you have to do the shining phase. So in turn order, people are going to be looking at their shining cards like I showed off earlier. So they'll flip them over for the first time, because like I said, you have not looked at these, and you add the values together. 5. I need to discard 5 tokens worth. So I'll use some from the board over here, like 4. Maybe I've collected this 4. And let's say I've got, you just have to match it or beat it. So I could basically get rid of these for an 8, which means I do not go mad. These represent the madness of the hotel, and if you cannot beat this number, then the hotel drives you crazy. So if you can discard, then you're good. Then you discard these cards as well for the next round. You discard these tokens for the next round, and you're all good. Everything is hunky-dory. But what if you can't? What if you're short? Or what if you don't have any tokens at all? You flip over your cards, and you add them together, and you go, man, I don't have it. So the purple player doesn't have it. So that means that the purple player goes insane, for lack of better terms, and tries to kill the other players. Now, in a 2-player game, there's really not a whole lot of choice, but the purple player, ignoring all movement restrictions and everything, just basically magically goes to the closest player. Now, if you're playing with more players and there are multiple targets as the closest player, the purple player gets to decide which one to go and attack. So if they're equidistant, then you get to decide where the purple player is going to go. But in this 2-player game, there is only one option, the yellow player. So the purple will attack the yellow player and go in there because they've gone insane for that round. They're going to roll some dice. If they roll a blank, there's a blank. If they roll a blank, then great, awesome, nothing happens. If they roll a blood dot or a blood stain, the player is going to lose a health. And as far as I know, there's no way to get health back in this game, so it's kind of a big deal. So they will chuck a health. If they roll the elevator, then it has no effect, because that just has to do with the elevator. If they roll a weapon and they happen to have a token, where were those tokens at? Here we go. Hold on a second. If they happen to have that matching, then the player that's being attacked receives an additional damage. So if I had the axe and I rolled this, that's pretty nasty for my fellow compatriots here at the Overlook Hotel. If you roll something that you don't have, for example, I rolled the bat, but I don't have a bat, I have the axe, then nothing happens. You just assign the 1 damage. Or sometimes it could be no damage, which is great, because again, everyone's trying to stay alive. When you die, the game is automatically over. So as we can see here, yellow just took 2 hits. If your pool, because I remember mentioned how you can spend from your pool, if this is completely exhausted, meaning all of these are gone, then a third not negotiable attack has been, hit point takes place. And so even if I rolled something like that, woohoo, no damage. Sorry, if you're out of these tokens, you're always going to take 1. You're always going to take 1. You just add +1 to whatever you roll. Not too good when you only start with 3 hit points. And as soon as someone dies, the game is over. You do not finish out rounds. You don't continue doing other people's cards, this, that, or the other thing. So one person will reveal their cards. The next person will reveal their cards. Do what happens. If you stay sane, then that's great. Then nothing happens. If you go insane, then you move and you attack somebody. After that has all been resolved by all the players, then you will tick up the month tracker to the 2nd month, and you will start a new round. The first player token, which is probably the coolest first player token that I've seen in a while, is this room key, old style room key, room 237, which is up here. This gets passed to the next player, and they become the first player. This is the first player marker, which is pretty awesome. They will flip over an event card. You will replenish these, and you will essentially start over. Now, I did guarantee that I was going to go into one spot, the hedge maze, in depth, whereas the other rooms I'm not really going to talk about. The hedge maze is what I attribute to, it's akin to when you're on the playground and you're playing tag, and someone sets up like a particular object that if you're touching that object, you're safe, you can't be tagged, but then you can only stay on that object for X amount of time. Maybe I'm dating myself. Maybe kids don't play tag anymore that way. But the hedge maze is kind of a safe zone. So let's set this up again. Let's say that purple went insane. Let's say purple knows that they're going to go insane. They're like, oof, the round's going to end, and so I'm going to use some movement to go into the hedge maze. If you are in the hedge maze and you go insane or go mad because you're not able to fulfill your shining card request, you do not move. You will just stay here and you will do nothing. So you're basically kind of stuck from jumping to attack other players. So that's a really great spot to go if you think that you're going to go insane. But what if yellow also thinks that they're going to go insane? Well, then maybe they would move to the hedge maze as well. Not quite so lucky, because you can still attack each other while in the hedge maze. So it's just if there's only one person in there, kind of like a little timeout, they cannot get out and attack other people. And so that's the one benefit of the hedge maze. That's why I wanted to point that out, is that there is kind of a timeout section in the board, or on the board, the hedge maze. Once all the players have gone through the shining phase in the 4th round, assuming that you're not playing with the traitor, then they all win. If nobody has died, you win the game. And like I said before, if their health is reduced to 0, the game is automatically over and you have lost. If you are playing with the traitor element, the game switches up a little bit, which I'm not going to go into because, again, I don't really care for semi-cooperative games that much. But you will open up basically a 5th round where the traitor will then come amok. And just like most semi-cooperative games, there's ways for people to kind of vote or suss out who the traitor is. If they call that person out and they're correct, there's ways that the game changes that I'm not going to go into. So that is basically a overview of what's happening at the Overlook Hotel. So there you have it, The Shining, the board game by Prospero Hall. Now let me get something out of the way before I start rambling about the game. I have only played The Shining as a fully cooperative game. I have not played it the way that it's really supposed to be played, which is with the semi-cooperative aspect where you have someone at the table that's the traitor. For me, personally, I don't think that semi-cooperative games work as well as they're supposed to. There's games such as Shadows over Camelot, Dead of Winter. Those are just 2 examples of semi-cooperative games that I just feel like they miss the mark, because you have someone that's supposed to be working as a part of the team, but then they're not part of the team because they're the traitor, or they're the corrupted, or they're the spy, or they're your evil grandmother, or they're just Hitler in general. But usually it's a swing and a miss when it comes to semi-cooperative games. Usually. I can't really think of one off the top of my head that's semi-cooperative that I think works really, really well. And I mean semi-cooperative, not social deduction or anything like that. If you guys think of a semi-cooperative game, leave me a comment. Let me know what semi-cooperative game you think works really, really well. So, getting that aside, I've only played the game as a fully cooperative game. So The Shining, the board game, is made by Prospero Hall, which is a design team that I've been specifically going out of my way to get a hold of their games, to play their games, and to do videos on their games. Now, they've made some really great games that I recommend, such as Horrified and Pan Am. Also, there's a Back to the Future cooperative game that I think is a good game. All of those games are family friendly. Pan Am is probably the one that's got the most strategy to it. But other than that, they're cooperative games, and they feel very much like the same weight as Pandemic, if you've ever played Pandemic, the board game. They've also made a couple of clunkers. The Disney Call of the Spirits, the Haunted Mansion game was a huge swing and a miss for me. It was a major flop. Also, they make Villainous, which I'm sure you guys have seen at Walmart or Target. That one, I wouldn't say is a swing and a miss. I do enjoy it, but you definitely have to play a lot of the different villains so that you have a different play experience every time. So I recommend getting a lot of expansion. That basically is a game where you're going to need expansions for. And so that might be a tick against it. But anyways, let's get back to The Shining. So The Shining, for me, is just as good as any of the other cooperative games. Again, I know I'm repeating myself. I personally recommend just playing it, especially the first couple of games, as just a fully cooperative game. I played my first game as a fully cooperative game. We lost in like the last month. It came down to it was like a nail biter. And so it's not necessarily a game that's going to be completely easy. Just a walk away, like there's no way for us to lose. We totally are going to dominate this game. However, I can understand the need for playing, if you're going to play The Shining multiple times, you might want to mix it up and say, hey, let's try it the way that it's supposed to be played with a corrupted traitor aspect. And if that's something you want to do, knock yourself out. And I mean that in a great way. Like, enjoy the game. Let me know how that goes. For me, I don't see a situation where I'll be setting up The Shining as anything other than a cooperative game. The gameplay is simplistic. It's kind of move, take an action, that's your turn. Move, take the action, it's your turn. Strategize a little bit in regards to trying not to attack each other. Who's going to go insane this round? Can you make it to the hedge maze? And then if you have multiple people, okay, well, they both go in the hedge maze, they'll just attack each other, which is just, you can't have that happen. You can't have anyone die. You can't, like, damage is so limited, as you saw. You only have 3 hit points. And if your pool of tokens is run out and you have like a really monstrous roll, that could be game right there. You could just be like, that's game, we lost. So I just killed Mr. Bill, and now the game's over. And so it's got some strategy where you're going to want to strategize with people at the table, the other players, but it's still really simplistic. It really is. It's draw an event card, do whatever it says. Usually the events say something like players cannot enter a certain room this round, or players cannot take extra movements because this round. I mean, it's very simple. It's not a whole like list of things to do. It's just a family weight game. I would put this on the scale of the other ones like Horrified or Pandemic. It's a really easy game to teach. It's a really easy game to play. It doesn't take long to play. It plays between 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. There's one thing I do want to talk about at the extent of making my video longer. It's something that's on the box. Here, let me grab. On the box, it says ages 17 plus. And now, before I started shooting and I was setting up the camera, I was thinking 17, you got to be a 17-year-old or older to play this game. Why 17? Why not 18? Why not 16? Like, what's the difference? You're 16 years old? Sorry, you can't play this game. It doesn't make any sense. I would love to play this game with a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old. I mean, I do think that there is a level that does need to be cut off, but why 17? 17 to me seems incredibly old, for lack of better terms, to play this very simplistic family weight game. Now, the only things that I could think of is, yes, in this game, you are attacking other players. Maybe that might be an issue because you're killing and hurting. If you're playing with mom, maybe a 12-year-old would be like, you have to go attack your mother. I have no clue. As you may have saw, the artwork has a little bit of like blood drips and there's some, but really it's nothing gory. The artwork is not gory. It's not something that's going to be like, oh, this is for older kids. I think if you were to show this to a 12-year-old and you'd show off some of the art and some of the little tokens that's got like blood drops on it, I don't think a 12-year-old's going to be like, this game is scary. No, in fact, they probably would feel more freaked out about having to go try to hack up their mom because they went insane than the actual artwork itself. So when it comes to the age that's on the box, I don't really understand. I guess there isn't really a board game police that's going to come knocking at your door saying like, I'm sorry you're playing this game with people, members and individuals that are under the age of 17. So I would say this is definitely a family game of the horror nature. So if you have kids that are not going to be affected by having to attack other players if they go mad, and obviously the artwork, I don't see anything wrong with the artwork. Now, maybe that's just because I'm just an old man and there's really nothing that shocks me anymore. I'm so desensitized to horror stuff and horror art as someone who plays pretty much every Arkham horror game under the sun. It just doesn't freak me out. Like, I think it would freak out like a 14-year-old or 15-year-old. I don't think that. I'd say just do whatever the hell you want. Play it with your kids. If you think your kids can handle it. If you think they can handle it, do whatever you want. Laissez-faire, right? But having said all of that, I'm going to recap. I think this is a really good game. It's a game that's going to stay in my collection. It's a game that I plan on playing some more. And who knows, maybe I might try the Traitor variant. We'll see. So I recommend The Shining for your family. If your family likes horror or wants to have kind of a horror style game that's not going to be too gruesome, like Arkham Horror, I think would be too much of a jump. And so this one is definitely more family related, I guess, as far as it can get for still being a horror game than others. So if it seems like something for your family, highly recommend it. You should pick it up. That's where I'm going to leave us today. My name is Andrew Davidson. You've been watching As Per My Ability, and I will see each and every single one of you at the next video.